Jagmeet Singh has lost it. He is off of his rocker. The other day, he was at the center of the most pivotal moment, pivotal time here in recent Canadian history, where he tore up for the world to see his coalition deal with Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government. And people are saying, all right, well, if that's true, why don't you call an election? To which Jagmeet has now replied saying, when an election occurs, we're going to win. So he's hinting at the possibility of a premature election before the one that's scheduled in October 2024. But we have yet to actually get a one-on-one, press conference or with him sitting down with a reporter to actually discuss it. Until right now, Vashi from CTV Powerplay sits down with Jagmeet Singh and goes over a whole lot. So we've got a lot of information to take a look at in this video. Sorry for the double upload, but this is pretty pressing. I hope you stick around for the full thing. But before we get into it, I do want to encourage everyone to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. We've passed 400,000 subscribers. We're en route for 500, 500,000, which is pretty mind-blowing. But nonetheless, I want to thank everybody for being a part of the community. I want to thank all the channel members. It continues to grow, and I want to thank everybody for returning here, smashing those like buttons, and subscribing with post notifications. And without further ado, let's get into it. So as you can see from the polls, Justin Trudeau is still at 81 seats. Pierre Poilievre is at 210 projected seats. And Jagmeet Singh is all the way down there. Hold on. Let me zoom in. That's a pretty small... Let me zoom in further. That's a small number. 16 projected seats. Okay, that's where he is. Sorry, I almost had to put glasses on. Yikes. It's not looking good for you, Jagmeet. It's really not. And his tactic is obviously to try and create as much distance from Justin Trudeau as he possibly can, because Trudeau brings his own massive amount of baggage of controversy. But so does Jagmeet. So this move is strategic. And I can kind of understand why he would do it, but if he was really serious, he should be calling an election. So earlier today, Jagmeet Singh was ripped apart at his own press conference by reporters. We're going to take a look at that, and then we're going to look at the one-on-one sit-down.
Brian Lilly with the Toronto Sun. You've made it very clear that you don't have faith in the Liberal government to deliver for Canadians. So a simple question, hopefully a simple answer. Do you have confidence in the Trudeau government?
Well, we've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. That speaks for itself. I've ripped up the agreement, and I know that means an election is now more likely. We will look at every vote as it comes and make a decision as it comes. I'm not going to presuppose the outcome of a vote before it happens. We will look at each vote and make our decision as it comes. But let us be very clear. I am absolutely aware that ripping up the agreement with Justin Trudeau means an election is more likely, and that sets up the question for what is this election going to be about. I am very strongly in belief that this election is about two competing visions for our country. The vision of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives is a vision to cut the things that you want. They're bragging about wanting to cut healthcare and destroy universal public healthcare as we know it. So the choice is, do you want Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives to make our healthcare system one where you've got to pay out of pocket to see a doctor, and only those who've got money can get healthcare that they need? Or you Democrats who believe very fundamentally that it should not matter how much you have in your wallet to determine the quality of care and how fast you get it. That is a choice in this upcoming election. What vision of Canada Canadians want?
You've said about a dozen times at least that you've ripped up the agreement and that makes an election more likely. But you've been asked several times and you won't answer. Do you have confidence in the Trudeau government as they stand now?
I will be clear again. We have absolutely ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, and that means an election is more likely.
Clear. That's not clear. You're equivocating.
And an election, whenever that election comes, we'll be ready to fight it. And the vision around that election is going to be an important one. Canadians will have to make a choice.
But can we get an answer?
Corporate-controlled Conservatives, they're going to let their corporate buddies rip you off even more, or New Democrats are going to save you money on your rent and your groceries. That's a choice that Canadians will have to make.
Can we get...
This is absolutely insane. He can't answer a single question. he's headed towards this massive downward spiral that he just is not prepared for. Jagmeet Singh is not fit. He's not suitable to be prime minister. He's not even suitable to be the party leader of the NDP. And you're going to see more of that really come out in this one-on-one, where he doesn't have that opportunity to just suppress a reporter. So now he sits down with Vashi and he goes over everything that has transpired over the past couple of days.
Thank you so much for making the time.
My pleasure.
Mr. Singh, in your video yesterday and in the comments you made today, you called the Liberals and the government more specifically weak and selfish. You said they've let Canadians down, they've abandoned Canadians, and that they have led to endless disappointment for Canadians. How can you ever support them going forward after saying that?
Well, we've torn up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. I've torn that up. And I know that that means election is more likely than before. And it was really clear to me, there's mounting evidence that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were just too weak to take on corporate greed. They were too beholden to corporate interests to stop big corporate grocery stores and corporate landlords from ripping people off. And frankly, they're too weak to stand up to the real threat of conservatives under Pierre Poilievre who want to cut our healthcare system and cut pensions. So for all those reasons, we've ripped up the agreement and we're putting to Canadians the choice for the next elections between New Democrats who are going to give people hope or Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives who want to cut.
But ripping up the agreement is just ending the...
He seems to think that he surpasses Justin Trudeau in popularity and that this upcoming election is between the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, and Pierre Poilievre only, which is pretty wild considering that Justin Trudeau is significantly more popular, even with all the controversy and baggage that Trudeau carries, than Jagmeet Singh.
Formality of it. You explicitly said, for example, in that video that you will continue to consider whether or not to support the government on matters of confidence on a case-by-case basis. Again, I'll put the question to you. You have told Canadians they are weak, they are selfish, that they have abandoned the very people who put them in office. You just described a host of reasons why you don't want to be a part of any formal agreement. How can you reconcile for Canadians watching now that you're still willing to vote with them and keep them in power on a case-by-case basis?
Well, I don't know what the votes are going to be. So we'll see what the vote is, and I'll make a decision based on what comes before me, using the lens of, is this in the best interest of Canadians? Depends on what the votes are and depends on what comes before us. But we know that this does certainly mean that an election is more likely, and that election will be about a choice. People are frustrated and done with the Liberals and Justin Trudeau. So it'll be between Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative cuts or New Democrats' hope and building up the programs that people need.
I have to also ask you, Mr. Singh, why now? And in particular, you know, I've done so many interviews with you. I'm sure you're sick of them, where I ask you the question, like, this is the way in which you're describing the government. Why are you still keeping them in power? I don't understand what changed, saliently over the last number of days or weeks that led you to make this decision now versus, let's say, 6 months ago. You point to corporate greed, for example, particularly in the grocery sector. Food prices were at their highest over a year ago, and the government wasn't doing much even then. Why didn't that force you to make this decision? Is this more about really polling and your electoral chances, and some would accuse in the Conservatives your pension?
Not at all. First of all, let's put that to rest. That's a lie being propagated by Pierre Poilievre, who's, I think, got his full pension when he was like 31. So I don't know. He wants to cut people's pensions. Speaking of pensions, he wants to cut seniors' pensions. I mean, that's what we should be talking about, the fact that we want to defend and strengthen people's pensions, and he wants to cut them. I think people should know about that. But when it comes to decision, we always knew that at some point we would have to make this decision, that we weren't going to stay in this forever, and we would make that decision based on a whole host of factors. What we saw was that we got a lot of things done. We were able to get the dental care program out the door. Pharmacare steps have been passed in Parliament. So a lot of the work that we wanted to do is done. And it became very clear, more and more evidence mounted that the Liberals were simply too beholden to corporate interest.
What's the evidence?
And that's not going to make the needs of...
See, if he was really serious about the things that he's saying, he would call an election. He's still propping up Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government. He's still holding us hostage. Nothing has changed in the past couple of days. Before he made the announcement that the coalition is done, nothing has changed. A piece of paper has been torn and some hopium has been spread. And yes, I'm optimistic that this is a step in the right direction to get an election going. But he's not not saying, and I might call an election. When he's talking about an election, he's saying an election is more likely to happen. So it's just this weird little verbiage that he does, and it just shows how disingenuous he really is.
Canadians.
With due respect, what is the recent evidence that underscores that point that didn't already exist 6 or 8 months ago?
I would say the approach towards working people when it comes to the rail workers. I was really concerned about that. I raised those concerns very publicly, that these workers were just asking for more safety, and that CP and CPKC and CN Rail, in a lot of ways, what looks like a collusion of timing this together. They locked out the workers. First of all, the workers weren't even on strike. They locked out the workers, and the workers weren't even able to negotiate before they were forced to binding arbitration. Another example of the Liberals caving to the corporate interests instead of letting workers fight out and get a fair deal at the table. Just that was another example of mounting evidence. We got a lot of things done. The Liberals aren't able to do more for people, and we've toned up our agreement, and we're going to go vote to vote.
So if they had behaved differently.
So out of all the things that Justin Trudeau has done, out of all of the raising taxes, of all the not focusing enough on Palestine, which is a big thing for Jagmeet, he's very much with Palestine. He showed up at very many pro-Palestine protests in Ottawa, maybe Toronto as well, but just across Canada in general. Of all the things that Justin Trudeau has done that Jagmeet has disagreed with, the railway lockout is the camel, or the camel that broke the straw's back. The straw that broke the camel's back. That's a very interesting thing. It just seems, I know it's a big deal, right? Like railway lockout and the potential of a railway strike and shutting down our distribution system is huge, but that seems like there was so many other things that are way bigger and way more controversial that Jagmeet should have used as, hey, yeah, this is it. I'm done with this coalition. Instead, he chose something that had the potential to be very large, but wasn't. I don't know. Something seems very odd about this and the timing.
In that labor dispute, would you still be in this agreement?
I don't want to deal with hypotheticals. They did what they did, and it became very clear to me that they were no longer able to meaningfully tackle the problems that people are going through. They've shown again and again, and the evidence has got to the point where we said they cannot take on the major issues of the day. The fact that corporate landlords are rent evicting people, jacking up rents, they're not going to take that on. They're not doing what's necessary, so we tore up the agreement. And the next election, again, is going to be a choice. People want change. They're going to replace Justin Trudeau. Do they choose Pierre Poilievre, the Conservatives, who want to let big corporations rip off people even more? They're going to put fire on the fuel of corporate greed. Or New Democrats, who are saying, let's make people the priority. Let's protect people from the corporate greed of these large, powerful interests, and let's make sure people get lower rents and lower grocery prices.
I don't like the fact that he didn't answer that question that Vashi just posed of, if the railway situation did not happen, would you still have torn up the coalition? That should be a simple yes or no. And the fact that he's not answering that just, again, validates how disingenuous Jagmeet Singh really is. Like, if you're saying that that was the catalyst to doing it, then why can't you admit that if it didn't happen, you would still be in a coalition? Or say, you know what, we were talking about this, so we might have, it might have taken a little bit longer to break off the coalition and to end that deal, but ultimately that was kind of the biggest pivotal point. It's not hard to answer that.
But again, with great respect, all of the stuff that you lay out, we have been talking about, you and I, you and other politicians. There has been accountability directed at the government and questions about why they aren't doing more on those issues that you talk about affordability, about grocery prices, about corporate interests for over a year. Like, it was particularly difficult for Canadians. I mean, inflation has edged down, but prices are up 20% over the last 3 years, and they were super high Absolutely. A year ago. My question isn't hypothetical. You are raising the idea that the CN Rail dispute and their handling of it really was it a turning point? Like, again, I'm not clear why this wasn't a decision you didn't make earlier, unless now you see that your personal interest is better served and you didn't before.
Well, like I mentioned, we got work done. We got things done, things completed. We wanted to make sure dental care was completed. To at least the second phase include seniors, and a lot of that program was done over the summer. So that completed
but it's not totally
a significant
done.
part of
and
our
neither
agreement.
is pharmacare. It's
so
still
that
before
was
the Senate.
that was really important. This summer, actually, we got the portal. We got some major changes. So we got a lot of work done. And it became very clear with their approach towards workers in the rail situation that, again, another example of caving to corporate interests. And so we made it very clear that they're no longer able to meaningfully tackle the problems that people are going through. We've torn up the agreement because they're too weak to take on the Conservatives, and they're too weak and beholden to corporate interest to stop what is the major concern, what people are going through right now. The high cost of living is being driven by corporate greed, and the Liberals aren't doing anything about it.
I guess I would just point out that both pharmacare and dental care are not completed in the vein that you saw them. There's even still a legislative process that's unfolding where pharmacare is concerned. I also wanted to ask you about
on pharmacare, in terms of the legislative process in the House, that's completed.
Yes, before
it's
the
a Senate vote, which obviously we don't have any influence over.
No, but things can happen. You never know. I'm just saying that's not completely done. I also
It's voted in the House. That bill is done.
So you think for sure it's going to happen? You trust the Liberals to make sure it happens? Because I think the argument you're making
that's
is
on them.
Yeah, but the argument
if Justin Trudeau doesn't move forward on pharmacare, that's because Justin Trudeau chose not to. But in terms of
the argument you're making, sure, but the argument you're making to Canadians is essentially you stayed in it as long as you did to get things done. So if those things aren't done, why aren't you continuing to stay in it unless there's some kind of political interest in it for you to move to a different position, which is what the Liberals essentially are accusing you of. They say blatantly, Karina Gold on this program last night, you put your own interests ahead of Canadians.
Dental care is done. We've got the legislation necessary for it, the program's out the door, and people are getting it. Millions of people have gotten it. And the pharmacare legislation is passed. The anti-scab legislation is passed. Major pieces of our agreement have been completed. We've gotten a lot of work done, important work. And now we're turning the page on that and saying that the Liberals are no longer made it clear they're no longer able to do what's necessary to tackle the issues of the day. And the issues of the day are the high cost of groceries, high cost of rent. Housing and groceries are two major concerns I hear from. The Liberals have shown again and again that they've caved to corporate interests on those two files. And then most recently in the summer, they caved to the corporate interests of these large corporate railroads instead of letting workers get a fair deal. They've made it clear that they're not interested in tackling these problems. We've torn up the agreement with Justin Trudeau.
I mean, their argument is that a whole ton of other workers would have been impacted by a stoppage on the rail network, but I do take your point. Can I ask you to clarify on the question of the pension, because it is an argument that the Conservatives are continually using. Are you eligible for a pension in February because of when you were elected in the by-election, and has that factored into your decision-making in all of this, or will it factor into your decision-making in perhaps prompting an election?
He's going to play dumb.
Record on that?
Not at all. It's a ludicrous suggestion. I'm obviously going to get reelected in my riding. I'm not worried about that at all. This is a silly argument being bought by Conservatives, but it's on purpose. And the reason why Pierre Poilievre is doing this, because he wants to distract from what he wants to do.
Notice how he didn't mention anything about his pension?
So for your parents, for your grandparents, he doesn't think they deserve to get their teeth looked after. He wants to get rid of this entirely. Not only that, he also wants to get rid of our universal healthcare system. He's been very open about that. He doesn't want to see a public healthcare system. He wants to see it entirely private. So that's what he's distracting from. He knows he's lying, and he knows that he's distracting from the fact that he wants to destroy not only dental care, but our healthcare system as well. We're going to keep on fighting to defend it because we believe in it. We believe no one should have to worry about how much money they have in their pocket to be able to get good quality care in our country. We're going to fight to make sure our healthcare is...
Okay. This is the problem with politicians. That was a simple question. Is your pension coming up in February of 2025? And was that a decision, or is that a factor in how you're going about this political tactic? He answered one of them. Is it a factor in your political tactic? And he just spent the past 60 to 90 seconds going on about that. It's almost like he thinks we're going to forget the fact that there was another part of the question that was asked. And this is what is so freaking frustrating with politicians. And I swear, if I ever see Pierre Poilievre do this, I'm going to hold him exactly as accountable, because it drives me nuts. And I don't care what side of the political spectrum, left, right, ultra right, in the center, I don't give a a shit. If you can't answer a simple question, you should not be an elected official. It's that simple. Is your pension coming up? Well, let me just say, Pierre Poilievre he's got this tactic where he brings up these things and he's against pharmacare. And, bro, what is wrong with you? Grab him by the shoulders and shake him, for crying out loud. It doesn't make any sense. It drives me mental.
It's there for people, and we're going to fix it.
One final question for you, for Canadians watching right now, Mr. Singh.
I hate how Vashi, that's the second time that she's asked a question about his pension, and she didn't want to follow up. Is your pension coming up in February 2025? She should have done that right there. She should have done that. I freaking don't like it. She's done a good job so far, but I don't like that.
The Prime Minister keeps getting questions about whether he should remain as leader because of where public opinion polling for his party sits. At the same time, while the Liberals have had, dwindling, to say the least, political fortunes, your party has not been able to capitalize on that at all. Your polls have remained fairly stagnant for the last 3 years. Should people be asking you if you should remain on as the NDP's leader? Are you asking yourself that? And how much responsibility do you bear?
Too many questions, Vashi.
Your party.
Too many questions at once.
We've brought in the biggest expansion of healthcare in a generation. I'm proud of the work that we've done. I'm running to be Prime Minister of this country, and I'll be leading the party to the next election.
All right, that's it. We're done. We're done watching him. He's so friggin' stupid. Shut your stupid ass up. I can't wait to sue you, Jagmeet. You owe me 16 Rolexes all on my wrist. This is insane. The fact that they can't answer a simple question drives me nuts. And maybe it's because it's later in the day and I haven't had coffee for over an hour and I'm just angry and aggravated and I want some freaking answers, and I was expecting more from a one-on-one sit down with Vashi, but it is so disingenuous and annoying that our public officials cannot answer a simple question. Are you going to resign, or do you think that you should resign? Yes or no? The answer should have been no, Vashi. I don't think about resigning because I think that I have a real opportunity at winning. That, although it's extremely delusional, is how you answer that freaking question. Not, we're bringing a lot of health care and dental care and trauma care and da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Nobody cares about that. That wasn't the question that was asked. It drives me nuts. I'm sorry to cut it off. There's like another minute and a half. Jeez. Yeah, okay. We'll watch the rest of it because I don't want anyone feeling like they didn't watch the full thing.
Absolutely.
So do you not feel like you bear any responsibility for being unable to capitalize on the Liberals' fall from grace among Canadians?
We're going to be running to form government in the next election. I'm be running for Prime Minister.
Respectfully, that's not really an answer. Are you worried at all about the fact that you haven't been
Respectfully,
able?
that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm running for Prime Minister. I'm running to beat the Conservatives. I'm running to make sure that this country has someone that's going to be on their side.
And I understand what you're saying. I think Canadians understand that you are going to run to lead the party. Do you bear any responsibility, though, for the hill that party has to climb in order to be competitive with the Conservatives in the next election? You have framed the choice as very obvious for Canadians and the consequences as very dire if the Conservatives win, but your party has not been able to compete with them. Is that at all your responsibility?
Well, it's a serious fight. There's no question about it. I'm not in any ways kind of diminish the challenge in front of us. We've got a very big challenge. But it's clear that people are done with the Liberals. They're done with Justin Trudeau. And so when people want to replace Justin Trudeau, they're going to have to look to two choices. For federal parties, there's the Conservatives or the New Democrats. They want to change election. They want to get rid of Justin Trudeau, which people tell me they're frustrated with him. There's two choices. Not to say that this challenge is easy by any means. It's a very big challenge. But I want Canadians to know the choice is Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, who are very open. They're going to cut your pensions, they're going to cut health care, and they're going to let big corporations rip you off. Or New Democrats who want to restore hope. We want to build and strengthen our healthcare system and your pensions and stop these corporations from ripping you off. That's not easy. I know that's going to be an uphill battle, but that's the choice in front of Canadians.
I will leave it there. Mr. Singh, I appreciate your time.
What the fuck? Okay, these people, they try to cram in everything that they want to say, and they just use a question, is your favorite color blue? Well, let me tell you, you know whose favorite color isn't blue? Pierre Poilievre. Even though that's his favorite, that's his party's color, I got to tell you, all right, he's more of a pink pink type of person. And speaking of pink, you know what we're doing for healthcare? Oh my goodness, we've got all these policies going. Bro, that's not what the question was. I don't know what the hell is wrong with these people. Hello, Canadians out there, anyone who is voting for Jagmeet Singh, what the hell is wrong with you? Anybody who's voting for Justin Trudeau, what the hell is wrong with you? Have you lost your mind? This is a party leader who can't even answer a simple series of questions in plain English on national television. It's that radical. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody cares. They did for a day. Nobody cares anymore that you cut off the coalition. Nobody cares. It hasn't done anything. You still don't even understand English, Jagmeet. You weren't able to answer half of those questions. It's embarrassing for you. And that's why you're going to go down from 16 projected seats. You're going to go down into the single digits, likely very, very soon. You are not fit to be a political leader. You are not fit to be a sworn elected leader or official MP in this country. And oh my goodness, Canadians are so freaking fired up to vote in the next election. And you know what? Since you've made it to the end of the video, I'm going to pass the question off to you. Who are you voting for in the next election? Pierre, Trudeau, Jagmeet? Let me know down in the comments. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to end this video. On your way out, I would like to encourage you guys one last time to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already, and we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.